Swap that. Hi, you're tuning in live from Bats Theatre. Always wanted to do that. Welcome everyone to Listen to This, the final show of the series of shows that we've been doing for the last week. Just checking the audio right now. As we've been doing about 30 minutes safety pre-stream, which just basically means that we kind of start the stream early, make sure that all the tech and settings works, and make sure people watching from home can also check the stream and make sure their audio is at a good level. Just checking the stream now. I've got an earpiece in my ear to check. It's looking good. So, Listen to This has been, it's been an amazing experience. It's been really fun to do something. It's been really challenging in some ways, but really easy in other ways. We're really glad to kind of put this on. So I'm really glad. I'm just hearing myself speak. Okay, I pause it. Listen to This, and I personally, as the producer, organizer, tech person behind Listen to This, would like to just thank everyone that's been supporting and being a part of the shows from the beginning, like the specifically, just to mention a few, the podcasts that we've had on, Showy Ovaries, Are We Friends Yet, Dexperience, and tonight we have It Takes Two for their first ever live show. Super excited. And just a shout out to the two shows that unfortunately had to pull out, but due to the change in alert levels, Unpack NZ with Tavi and Ki, and Just the Tips with Henny G and Danny V. Give those podcasts a listen to as well. Hopefully, if we can do this again, we'll have them on. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe this will be a regular thing. I don't know, maybe. Listen to This would also like to thank Bats Theatre, all its staff. Literally, like, everyone has been like super helpful and kind, and especially like when we had to reschedule last week's shows. So thank you to all the audience members that were able to come in and accommodate us, as well as, it's really hard to, just like reschedule shows. So it's amazing that we're doing it, especially because they're not the same shows as well. So everyone's got different schedules. So it was a little miracle. So that was something. Just like to thank the Listen to This team. So aside from myself, there's also Logan Delaney, who's been helping with tech. He's a tech assistant. Thank you so much. We'd also like to thank James Heath, a production assistant. Thank you so much. Amy McPhail, who has been helping with, is in charge of marketing. Thank you so much. As well, we've had some musicians come in and play on some of the nights. So shout out to you, Brittany Meiklejohn, who has also played that really catchy theme that you've been hearing during the little startup section, as well as Lachlan Oosterman for your tunes. That's been really great. And let me just have a little geese. Who else? Oh, of course, the View staff. All of the View staff, thank you so much. My fellow MFA compatriots, shout out to you. You know who you are. And yeah, the View staff. I mentioned the View staff, but thank you so much, View staff. The 6 Degrees Festival for having us as part of their festival as well. That's just been such a wonderful, supportive experience. I guess just a general everyone community, you don't do we do these podcasts, which started off during lockdown because we kind of needed stuff to do with our lives. And then we just kind of kept it going. And I think that's it's a really nice thing that people are appreciating, and we can use it as a way to connect with people. Hello, Kia ora. Welcome. I'm just doing the pre-show for the stream, so feel free to just do whatever. It's fine. Um, and so yeah, as listen to this, um, we'd just like to thank you, the viewer, the audience, anyone that's kind of, thank you all for your support. It's been a really great experience to put this on, and yeah, it's just I feel really strongly about this. So I hope you all enjoy it. And what else? Let me think. Okay. So now I think I might just start talking. I might just start talking about listen to this, the podcast that we have on tonight. Actually, I'll just quickly read over their bio and intros. So It Takes Two is a podcast where two people watch and compare two movies with the same plot or premise. The main focus of is twin films released relatively within the same period of time, but with more fun combinations thrown in the mix as well. This live episode will focus on Galaxy Quest, released in 1999, and A Bug's Life, released in 1998. Two movies about groups of performers who are accidentally hired by a naive fan who believes them to be real warriors and needs them to save his people from an oppressor. So that sounds fun. And I'm just going to quickly introduce the two hosts as well. So It Takes Two is a podcast by Lisa Doyle and Nick Rains. Lisa is from Dublin, Ireland, and has been living in New Zealand since 2019. And Nick was born and raised in Hawke's Bay before moving to Wellington, where he and Lisa met and bonded over their shared love of film. They started podcasting together in August of last year, and this is their first ever live show. So yeah, that's exciting. We'll begin shortly, but again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you all. Big thank you to everyone involved for your support, and we will see you when the episode begins at 8:30, which is roughly 8 or so minutes away now. Many thanks. Namihi, and see you soon. Okay. And then play some music.
He's still muted?
Listen to This presents with great pleasure a duo that we love to see. It Takes Two with Lisa and Nick. Can we please make some noise?
Spoiler alert, it's both of those movies.
It's both of those movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is it time to do a preemptive spoiler alert for...
Well, if you haven't seen them, like it was 2008, 2009, that's... What?
1998
Oh, sorry.
1999.
Wow, I'm losing it today.
Even longer
Yeah,
ago. Over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Scary.
Because I remember seeing Toy Story in theatres.
We're not talking about Toy Story.
I know, but I'm just saying that I don't think I saw Bugs Life in theatres, but I did see it later on. But it would have
Right.
been within the sort of that sort of era of my life, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Because
because
I was
that's
still
when
a-
it was released.
Yeah, I was still a child then. But for me, I don't think I saw Galaxy Quest until a lot later after it was released. Maybe 5-6 years later.
Okay.
Because I think it was recommended to me, or it might have been the time where I was just binge watching old used VHSs.
Fair enough. I don't recollect a time in my life where I didn't know Galaxy Quest,
Fair.
because it is embedded in my bones. I may have written Galaxy Quest, I think.
Yeah.
But
Those time
yeah.
travel scripts really.
yeah, I wrote it, and then I watched it, and then I went back and wrote it and made it.
Yeah.
So it's like a paradox movie. It's got all my favorite people in it, by which I mean Sam Rockwell several times. Well, he's
Yeah.
only in it once, actually. That's a spoiler for a different movie.
Yeah. You were saying earlier when we weren't live that out of the 42 Sam Rockwell movies, you've seen 38 of them, but then you have to
No,
update.
I think I've seen about 42 Sam Rockwell films.
Okay.
I don't know how many he's been in, like 60 something maybe.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I've seen approximately 42 Sam Rockwell films.
Talking of cast, like I've got a list here because I had to, because it's massive. Like the cast for voice actors obviously for Bugs Life, but then the main cast for Galaxy Quest are insane.
Yeah, I mean, even the people voice acting in A Bug's Life are insane.
Yeah.
Like, they're big names, especially since it's their second feature. I guess because they're with Disney, it kind of made it easier.
I'd say that, but even still, there was a time where, these CGI movies was sort of like, it could be a hit or it could be a miss. It's
Yeah.
that it was a sort of new to
Yeah, this was before they knew
Yeah.
whether it could be a hit or not.
before they just literally just pump one out a year and just print money out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what they do now?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the most recent one, so
let's just pause and say we both agreed that the other movie going for the best Oscar for animated movie was better than Soul.
well, there were several movies going for best animated feature, and we
No, there were two. There was the one that won, and then the one
the
that we.
one that won, the one that should have won.
Yeah.
There was I think there was 5, but we're biased because the other one was an Irish movie, and I know several people who worked on it. So
That
That's-
wasn't the bias for me, but okay. It might have been
It's
your
a
bias.
good movie, though.
Yeah, it is a really good movie. I can't remember the name of it because
I'm afraid I'm going to get the name wrong, and
Yeah.
we're live right now, so that's terrifying.
Yeah, you can't
Um,
edit that later.
I believe, is it Moonwalkers? Or have I just made up?
Wolfwalkers.
Wolfwalkers.
Wolfwalkers,
Wolfwalkers.
yeah.
There we go. Sorry to everyone who is watching who worked on that film.
Yeah, they're messaging you now.
I've got a message from my mom saying that we're loud and clear and we look good, so thank you.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, so speaking of which, shout out to people who are watching us on live stream. I know we've got a few people in Ireland watching us, which is nice because it's like 7:30 a.m. So thank you for getting up to watch us, and thank you for anyone anywhere else. who would
Coffee
watch us.
on, milk in the cereal, not the other way around.
You could probably cook coffee and cereal.
No, it's making don't put milk in the bowl and then cereal. That's
What?
insane. People do that.
Put milk first and then the cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then the cereal is like
Just no.
crunchy
Let's
and
yeah.
doesn't absorb the. This is not what our podcast is. About.
It is now, damn it. No, okay. Let's get into the cast list.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, cast list. Okay.
I was just going through the cast list.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Not what we normally do, but go for it.
Dave Foley, who plays Flick, who's
Yes.
the main scout ant for Bug's Life,
For Bug's Life, yeah.
which we saw recently in Superstore eating dog food.
Yes, he
which
did
was a
eat dog food in Superstore.
Fantastic cameo.
Yeah.
And I have, for the next actor, I have thought about this for a bit, but I'm not going to talk about it. The main villain of A Bug's Life is Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
A
You got that rant out of you before we started recording.
little
That's
bit,
good,
yeah. Not all of it. It's still,
Yeah.
in there.
Well, if we run out of time, or if we start to finish up too early, we can go into a Kevin Spacey rant towards the
Yeah.
end.
Just it'd be 30
I
minutes
was-
of this and then
I was
an
about
hour
to
of
do
that.
what I was about to do what you did before with Tim Allen. I was going to be like, this is it's one of Kevin Spacey and Sam Rockwell are in another movie together as well, and I was like, no, these are not the same movie.
They are the same movie. That's why we have a podcast
Yeah,
about it. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays the princess. Hayden Panettiere, which I didn't know was
Yeah,
Dot.
she's Dot. I think it was
Yeah.
her first ever feature. I think might be her first acting role or first on-screen role.
Yeah.
She was 11, I think.
Yeah,
maybe,
'cause
or maybe even younger
Because she became popular.
with Heroes.
It was sort of before that even.
Was it? That's the
I think
first
she
I'd
was
heard
when
of
she was
her.
mainstream. She was in Heroes, but
Oh,
I'm pretty
okay.
sure she was in like those sort of coming of age, teeny, low budget movies that they were just pumping out. Because I
Okay.
remember seeing her in one, and then I finished the movie, and I was like, "There's something wrong with that," and I realized there was no music, not in the opening
Oh.
credits, nowhere through the stream transitions, not at the end credits,
Weird.
and I was like, "That shows it was low budget." Because if you have no music,
Or,
then you
or
couldn't.
it's an artistic choice.
No, no. If
They
you'd
could
watched
get
this, if you'd watched the movie, there's no
You know,
artistic
they
choice
can
in
get
it.
some Kevin MacLeod free, copyright-free music in there. It's
Yeah.
what everyone I know who's an animator did when we were doing projects in school, in college.
Yeah, that's what everyone does now as
Yeah.
well. Because the internet's full of people that are just like, I don't care if I'm not going to get paid. I'm just going to pump out music,
Yeah.
and if people listen to it, they can steal it if they want to. It's free. Dennis Leary plays Francis, who's the male ladybug, which is funny because it's such a masculine voice playing,
Well, that's the whole
The-
thing in it, is
yeah.
that they're trying to kind of
because he's like.
challenge gender stereotypes a little bit.
Yeah, because he's such an overly masculine, like portraying outwards, and then he ends up becoming the head of the blueberries.
Yeah, the den mother.
Yeah, the den mother of the blueberries. David Hyde Pierce. Oh, the person I want to talk about mainly is Jonathan Harris. Do you know who Jonathan Harris is?
No.
Okay.
Should I? I probably
We
do.
just finished season 3 of Lost in Space.
Lost in Space, yeah.
So Jonathan Harris, played Dr. Zachariah Smith in the original
Okay.
Lost in Space.
Not the one where Gary Oldman plays Doctor.
No, that was a
Zachariah Smith.
different one. There has been several. Moving on. Oh, sorry, I was going to forget Brad Garrett, but I'm not going to. Brad Garrett's fantastic in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know the beetle that he plays, Dim? They just made it up. It's not a real beetle. They just invented a beetle, which is fair enough. And then in 2016, so like 17 years later, 18 years later, they discovered a beetle that's exactly the same as him.
Did they name it after him?
I don't think they named it after him, but they have named an effect. So it's if a fictional creature is now discovered to be a real creature, they call that the Dim effect. After
That's
Dim the beetle.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to forget Richard Kind, but I'm not going to because I'd
Richard Kind is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to Galaxy Quest, Tim Allen, as we've mentioned several times accidentally.
Yeah. He just keeps coming up.
One of my favourite actors of all time, Sigourney Weaver.
I always thought you were going to say Tim Allen was one of your favorite actors of all time, and I was like, this is the first time hearing
No,
this.
I did watch a lot of, I'm pretty sure
Home
I
Improvement?
watched all of it, and then probably several reruns of Home Improvement.
Yeah, you watched all of probably watched all of Home Improvement when it came out originally.
Yeah. And then we watched, did we watch 2 Christmas movies this Christmas with Tim Allen in it, or am
I
I
don't
just...
think so. I think we just watched The Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't know, that's only one movie.
No, because we're watching that stupid
Oh yeah,
movie
we did. We
quest
watched
today.
it earlier today. We
Yeah.
watched a guess the movie Christmas movie quiz on YouTube that we found, and it had I think 3 different movies that had Tim Allen in them as Christmas movies.
Yeah, it was Christmas with the Kroogs, and then
No, because it was the Cranks.
Cranks, and then several
the-
variants of the...
Yeah, I think the Santa Claus and the
Yeah.
Santa Claus 2.
Yeah.
There was also one with Nick Cage in it, which I've already forgotten what it was, but I'm still shocked that I didn't know there was a Christmas movie with Nick Cage in it.
Yeah. Obviously, rest his heart, Alan Rickman's in this movie.
Mm.
Um,
And he's perfection.
yeah, yeah. But he was in every movie that I've ever seen him in. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, like without
I mean,
a good bad guy, you don't have a relatable hero.
I don't know if you've seen Michael Collins. So
The dancer?
what?
No,
No,
who was the guy to the river dance?
Michael Flatley.
Thank you.
Not the same person. Michael Collins is an Irish revolutionary who is like often like credited as one of the main figures in gaining independence for Ireland from Britain.
And he
And
did that
there's-
through Riverdance, right?
No. And there's a movie about Michael Collins, and Michael Collins is played by Liam Neeson, I believe, and Eamon de Valera, the first president of Ireland, is played by Alan Rickman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then Julia Roberts is in it for some reason.
Because she can swallow her enemies whole.
What?
Moving on.
Didn't know that about her.
No, just the casts are fantastic. Like, who was
You're
Justin Long's first?
Justin Long's first film. He went in. He auditioned as a total unknown, and I can't remember. I didn't even take notes on who the other people were, but I know one of them was one of the Culkins. I think Rory Culkin,
Yeah,
or maybe Kieran Culkin, who is now really popular because he's in Succession.
yeah.
But he auditioned with Kieran Culkin, who had been in other roles beforehand, and he was like, "I'm not going to get this. I'm
They
literally
should
no
guest
one."
star on My Brother and Me.
Who, the Culkins?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we have the power to get them on My Brother and Me. It's
Why not?
Because we have no connection to that
Oh, okay.
podcast.
I just the cast of both these movies have been fantastic. That's all the notes I've got. So I'm putting my phone down.
all the notes you've got are the cast, and you didn't even name them all.
Yeah,
What about Tony Shalhoub?
yeah. Tony Shalhoub's fantastic.
You didn't even mention Sam Rockwell.
We've mentioned Sam Rockwell. Otherwise, it's just going to be Sam Rockwell the podcast.
It probably will be Sam Rockwell.
Okay, we can
podcast.
do that as a spin-off podcast.
Okay.
When this one gets popular, we can.
Is this one not popular? But
Well,
we've got
like I
such
said
a big
earlier,
audience.
when you were feeling a little bit nervous about this, and I said there's only 2 types of people in this world, Lisa: people that love us and people that haven't heard this podcast yet. Getting booed from the audience is fine.
Right. So I suppose we should get into the plot.
Yeah, the plot.
Plot of these movies. Well, I've already described it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the
Yeah,
episode. Thanks
so,
for coming.
Yeah.
No.
So about Kevin Spacey now.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I just want to talk about a few things.
Yes.
Starting off, the things that I took away that I found interesting about these two movies, because the empires that the heroes are hired to save,
Yes.
they are very different. In Galaxy Quest, I cannot pronounce the name of
Thermians.
the Thermians. Thank you. Their race is based their entire ideology on the Galaxy Quest show, which
Yes.
is clearly a spin-off, well, a parody of
Star
the
Trek.
original Star Trek.
And what was the other one called? Buck Rogers and the
Yeah.
25th
Century, yeah.
I froze for a second there because before when we were talking this, I was like, I'm going to say Duck Dodgers instead of Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Duck Dodgers and the 24th and a half century.
Yeah. So they've been like uplifted to this sort of human utopia about togetherness, and like they don't have the ability to lie, and they don't understand the concept of deception, which plays a massive plot point later on in
Yes.
the movie. Like I said at the beginning, spoilers. Versus the ant hill on the, what was it, on the island? Something on the
It's-
island. The island was mentioned a lot.
Yeah, so it's like a tiny little island in like a stream. And that's where the anthill is. So
It's interesting because-
Anthill Island, I think.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
called
something
it.
along those lines. That's canonically its name from now on.
We've decided. We've named it.
Yeah, we have the power. The camera's on us. Their empire is in decline because they have no innovation. Because Flick, as this person who they basically send off to die,
Yes.
is the only person innovating, and they're all like, he's like a freak weirdo that they just like leave on the outskirts, and it's really bizarre
Yeah,
because
yeah.
his equipment and machinery is literally their savior. And it's the scene at the end of the movie where they're celebrating as the heroes are leaving. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but this is how we do it.
It's fine.
This is how we roll. This is how my brain works. His like the ability to cut down. He's got like some sort of weird like chest harness lumberjack machine that he's built
Yeah.
with like a perpetual motion.
Yeah, because they're trying to harvest grain from-
individually, one at a time.
Yeah, and what he's done is he's designed this machine to cut down the stalk and harvest the grain out of it and then shoot the stalk away.
Yeah, which they use as fireworks at the end of the movie.
Yeah, which doesn't
But-
make any sense, but that's
doesn't matter.
It's okay. We'll accept it.
The point being is just like you see that like that's to me the biggest differences between the two movies. Is
Right.
the differences of the actual empires that are hiring the actors.
Yeah, I think the other thing is where the focus lies. So that was the big difference I took away from it, is where the focus is in the movies. So in A Bug's Life, the focus is on the ants.
Yeah.
For the whole thing, you start off with the ants, you learn about the ants, whatever. In Galaxy Quest, the focus is on that group of actors.
Yeah.
So you see everything from their point of view, and then they get bits of knowledge about the Thermians and their home planet, and et cetera, and we don't learn about those things until those actors do.
Yeah.
Whereas in A Bug's Life, we learn all about the anthill, how it runs, who's in charge, who's going to be in charge next, what the line of succession is,
Yeah.
everything before we even get introduced to the circus bugs. I was going to say the actors, but they're circus bugs in this
Yeah.
one.
Fired circus bugs at the beginning.
Yes, we get to see them get fired
Yeah.
at the beginning of the movie.
Out of a cannon.
Yes. So we do. So yeah. So I think the focus is in totally different places, because obviously in A Bug's Life you have Flick going off to find these bugs, or to find tough bugs, as he says, and then he comes across this group they're a circus troupe, but he doesn't realize that he finds them in a bar, and they are putting on a Robin Hood show to scare off some flies that are trying to attack them, and
Yeah.
he sees them and thinks it's a real fight.
And it's also that big town, small country thing going on.
Yes.
Because it's, like I said about the empire in decline, it shows because they're basically sort of Iron Age versus everybody. Like they've got sort of, it's not accurate, but they've got like millipedes using as like horses, and they're using glow bugs with coloured plastic to change like spotlighting, and it shows that like it's sort of like you're going from this very arcane empire into like modern.
Yeah, because the ants they do everything by hand, they do everything by tradition. There's
Yeah.
like a whole sequence where they're, lining up to put all the grains and berries they found on their like offering rock.
Yeah.
And a leaf falls down and they panic because they don't know how to get past the leaf,
Yeah.
and they have to be led around it, which is funny because I think ants in real life follow a scent trail
Yeah, they
rather
do.
than being able to see the other ant, so they would get lost if a big leaf fell down.
Yeah, there's a
They'd probably find it back quicker than that, though.
There's a
but-
phenomenon in ants called the circle of death, and what happens is that they lose the trail, and then they just end up swirling around continuously until they
Yep.
die of exhaustion, which is really cool to look at, but also really
Sad.
bizarre. Yeah,
You don't think
sad.
that's- I think
it's
that's
sad.
sad.
Yeah,
That's very upsetting, actually.
yeah. You just lose
Can you
your.
imagine if they just did that in a Bug's Life? The leaf falls down and the ants just circle until they die.
It'd be a very short movie. There'd be no going off to find anybody. It'd just be like, well, this is something that happens in nature. Well, moving on to the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
IP, I guess.
Yeah, it's because the whole plot of A Bug's Life is based on like a story about an ant and a grasshopper, and it's the grasshopper is eating the food all the time, and then when winter comes, he's got no food, whereas the ant has been stockpiling, and it's whatever. And it was literally the guy who wrote it was like, why doesn't the grasshopper just take the food? And then
So
they
the-
wrote a
the-
movie about it.
So what happened, what played in my head was Fry telling Bender about the, in Futurama,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, and then the grasshopper got a sports car. You know, that whole rant, and he's just like, you just, oh, never mind. Just where my mind was playing.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
I give up, that whole
Yeah.
spiel. The interesting part, because it becomes more of a symbiotic relationship between the grasshoppers needing the ants, and then the grasshoppers knowing the ants don't need them,
Yeah.
and that's why there's this like Hopper has a fear of rebellion, which is quite interesting in comparison to the Thermians, who are literally, I can't remember what the race of the bad guys are in Galaxy Quest.
I don't remember either. I don't think they're ever named, because it's just Saris, and then
Yeah.
like because I had to look through like the cast list, and it's like Saris, and then like Saris's soldiers, Saris's whatever. So I
double check.
don't know if it actually names the race of those aliens, but Saris is the big bad.
Yeah.
Oh no.
No, it literally just says reptilian humanoids who seek
Yeah.
to destroy the Thermians. There's
Yeah.
no.
So it doesn't ever specify their race, but they're definitely a much more real threat than the grasshoppers are.
Depends if you're an ant or not.
No, because the whole spoilers, but the whole message of A Bug's Life is the ants outnumber the grasshoppers, and the ants can stand up to the grasshoppers at any time. The grasshoppers are only doing what they're doing because they know if the ants realize that, then they have nothing.
Versus in Galaxy Quest, where the Thermians have to be shown how to be heroes by the actors.
And the Thermians are, like, we find out that their home planet has been destroyed,
Yeah.
and the ones that are on this, like,
Ship are the last ones.
well, it's not it's like a space
Oh, there was a
station.
space
is it?
station,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's the people who are on the space station are the last of their race that are left alive.
Yeah.
So I do think Saris presents a much more real threat. There's also no. Is there even a reason given why he's doing it? He's just kind of doing it for fun, I think.
I think they're just like the big bad. I
Yeah.
don't think you need. When you're talking about genociding an entire planet of people, I don't think you need a motivation to justify it, because it just, in general, it's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, but I mean, Thanos has like his like justification and stuff,
Yeah, Thanos
I think
also
Saris
had
is
several
just-
movies and several
Yeah, but I
decades
th-
of
I
comic books to
think that
justify it.
Saris is just sadistic and just wants to prove a point that he can do this.
Yeah,
It's just fun for him.
yeah, because it's not sort of like a resource grab, which
No.
is Hopper's whole thing.
Yeah. And it's literally just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Because he gets a lot of pleasure out of like, realizing what's actually going on when that comes to that moment. like, because he does understand deception and fiction and things like that, whereas the Thermians
Oh, right.
have
I
no
was,
idea.
sorry. In my mind, I was like, when does that happen in Bug's Life? I don't remember that part.
No, Cyrus isn't in A Bug's Life. Yeah, so there's a lot of similarities between these movies. There's weird similarities in these movies. One of the
Yeah.
things I picked up on this time around, because obviously I've seen both these movies a lot of times, but we rewatched them before this. They both make commentary on, like, I guess the Asian equivalent of blackface and like capitalizing on that for entertainment. Because in A Bug's Life, you have you have Manny the praying mantis and the gypsy moth, who have this like transformation act, and what they do is they take out like a Chinese takeout container,
yeah, yeah.
and they're like the mystic Chinese chamber or whatever,
Yeah.
and using the mysticism of the Orient and stuff to do it, and they make this whole like, when none of them are supposed to be Chinese or of Asian origin or whatever, they just use this as part of their act to like make it seem more interesting. And then in Galaxy Quest, you have Tech Sergeant Chen, played by Fred Kwan, who was quoted as saying, "Kwan's not even my real last name."
Yeah.
And when he's like on the show, he's like squinting the whole time. And it's this weird commentary on like just casting white actors in roles and being like, yeah, he's Asian. For no reason, except, I don't know, to have fake diversity in the show, I guess.
Yeah, where in actual Star Trek they had quite, well, not great, but it was still like record breaking for the time, because I think Kirk and Uhura's kiss was the first on mainstream interracial kissing on mainstream television.
Right, yeah.
I don't think it
that's
was in film, but I'm pretty sure it was on TV,
right.
because it was the first show that was shown completely in color.
Yeah.
The first science fiction show I'll just correct myself there, that was shown completely in color. Because Doctor Who, obviously longer running series, but started off
out in
black and white, and was
Yep.
still black and white for a long time, even after.
Which is
even,
the first two Doctors are black and white.
yeah, because
right?
I think, I don't know. I'd have to check my dates on
Because
it.
Pertwee was in color.
Floyd will be pulling his hair out.
Sorry, Floyd,
Yeah.
if you're watching.
Um,
But yeah, so I just thought it was weird that both movies have like a weird, just like a kind of background commentary on that.
Yeah.
Because that is that's still a problem sometimes in, whitewashing and stuff in
Yeah.
the industry. But back then, or like back when the Galaxy Quest show is supposed to have taken place
Yeah.
in the late 70s, early 80s, that was more of a thing, I think. So it's interesting that they both kind of do that. But it's also interesting that they have, Fred Kwan has legally changed his name to that,
Yeah.
I believe, which is, I don't know why. I guess more
'Cause it's
credibility.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because when you're talking about the actors playing the characters.
The actors playing the actors, playing the characters.
Yeah, in Galaxy Quest, and how their lives have been affected so heavily, and then you have like that sort of obviously like there's a massive gap in how much caring they still have. Like Alan Rickman's character hates the fact that he has to say it's parodying Spock, or Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming that every single convention he had to go to for decades was just like, say the line, Spock, say the line.
Say
To
the
the point
line.
where they make fun of it in Futurama again.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just like,
it's-
do the thing. And he's like, I don't do that anymore. He's literally a head in a jar.
They make fun of it in Shrek Forever After as well, where he has like a kid following around going, "Do the roar." You haven't seen that movie. We'll
No.
watch that eventually.
Okay.
You've only seen 2 Shrek movies. There are 2 more, plus the holiday specials. Anyway, it's not what we're here to talk about. What was I saying? I've forgotten now. I'm just
The
thinking about
differences in
Shrek.
how the fandom has affected the actors.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, I was going to say Lazarus. What's Lazarus is his character's name.
Would you like my cheat sheet?
Alexander Dane, played by Alan Rickman, who plays Lazarus.
Yes,
Um,
Dr. Lazarus.
Dr. Lazarus, played by Alexander Dane, played by Alan Rickman. He never takes off his headgear for the entire movie, which I think is the funniest thing. Because obviously for a lot of it, he's pretending to be that character.
Yeah.
And in other bits, he's in the convention where he's wearing that. But there's like scenes where he's at home on the phone and he's still wearing the headgear to make him look like an alien. Why? It's very funny, but I don't know, like, why would he still be wearing it when he hates it so much? Because his whole character is how much he hates that this is
What he is.
what his career has become.
It's interesting
But it's
because
all, I was Richard III, I was,
in saying that, talking of the being an onstage actor and sort of hating the role, when you look into Next Generation with Sir Patrick Stewart, he also wanted to get written out because again he was just like, why would I play this captain? I played Macbeth, I played King Lear, all this, and they were
and
just
now
like,
hasn't he come back and done a whole new series?
we
about
don't
it?
talk about Picard.
Okay.
We're not going to. I am open to questions about Discovery, but we will not be talking about Picard. Thank you.
Discovery is the only Star Trek I've ever seen. We watched one episode together.
Yeah, I
And I
made you
didn't
watch
like
one
it.
episode.
Galaxy Quest is my favorite Star Trek movie.
It's valid. I'd say Undiscovered Country, but never mind. It's interesting looking at how it's affected them because obviously there's sort of, what's it, that fiction emulates non-fiction. No, that's not the...
What? Life imitates art?
Thank you.
Okay.
My brain was just like fiction, non-fiction, fiction, non-fiction. Yeah, and it shows because, you get this, you can't jump into a parody of such a massive piece of science fiction history without sort of showing the fact that it did actually have an effect on the careers.
Yeah.
It's like I feel sorry for, and then also don't, because he played the best Joker of all time. Mark Hamill's career plummeted because of Star Wars.
Right.
And Harrison Ford sort of didn't, and I think Carrie Fisher was on a cocaine, so I think she was fine. It's
an interesting summing up of the Star Wars franchise.
But you look at Mark Hamill, you versus look at Harrison Ford, and you look at the careers they had after.
Well, Harrison Ford didn't have one before, right? Wasn't he a carpenter who got cast in Star Wars?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Actually, now, yeah.
So Star Wars was the beginning of his career. That was his discovery.
True. It's still you look at their careers afterwards, and it's just like Mark Hamill got shoeboxed
totally
into.
Different trajectories.
Yeah, which is a shame. But then again, he did play the best Joker of all time.
Yeah.
And continued all the way through until I think the end of the Arkham games. You haven't played them; it's fine.
I think I have played one, but not like fully through.
Oh, okay.
Like on someone else was playing it. I either just watched or I played some of it. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the Arkham games. I know they exist.
Yeah, it wasn't on Monster Factory episode.
No.
No.
Why do you keep referencing the McElroys?
I don't know.
We don't normally do that on the podcast.
You put it in my head today, and I can't get it out.
It's because I joked that we should introduce ourselves as...
Yes,
okay.
That's what it came from.
It's just stuck in there.
There's a few interesting pieces because it goes through, like Justin Long's character being the ultra fan and knowing everything about everything, to the point where he's asking him technical stuff at the what was it, like GalaxyCon?
Yeah.
Like the fake version of
I
fandom.
mean, if you want to get into like the similarities between Galaxy Quest and the real life experiences of the Star Trek actors, there's also like things in there that are based entirely on that. Like, it was like Peter Quincy Taggart, played by Tim Allen. He's William Shatner, and he's the moment where he's in the bathroom and he hears the fans or the guys outside talk about how he doesn't realize he's a joke and all that. Like, that's lifted from William Shatner's life.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about William Shatner. We're supposed to be talking about A Bug's Life. you've forgotten this.
Yeah, that's fine. if you want to take that direction, it's fine.
Oh, you want to compare the movies that we're here to compare?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I guess so.
The jumping again randomly around in the timeline. I think the ending of
What? You're just skipping to the end.
no, okay, I won't.
What?
I won't. We'll reverse back. We'll
So
put
at the
pause in
end
that.
of the movie.
I'll put a pin in that for later.
Yeah, but maybe do the end towards the end would
Okay.
make more sense. So, okay. If we want to take these movies in segments, there is before they find out that they're actors and after they find out that they're actors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we've talked a lot about Galaxy Quest, so we'll skip back to It's a Bug's Life.
It's a wonderful
This-
Bug's Life.
The sequel to It's a Wonderful Life, It's a Bug's Life.
Yeah.
So that starts out with ants trying to get their stuff together for the
Yeah.
grasshoppers, because what they do is the grasshoppers come and take a whole load of food, and then the ants have like a week to gather the rest of the food for themselves.
Because of Flick's invention destroys it, knocks
No,
it
but
off
that's how
yeah.
it normally would work.
Yeah.
But in this instance, Flick's invention has knocked all the food down, so the grasshoppers arrive, there's no food for them, and the ants have to gather all the food again for the grasshoppers
Yeah.
and themselves, but they're not going to be able to feed themselves.
Yeah.
So Flick comes up with this plan that he'll go get these like tough bugs to come help them, and they'll fight off the grasshoppers, and then the ants can live peacefully. In A Bug's Life, Flick is kind of seen as like a weirdo, as you said.
Yeah.
And they mostly say, yes, go do that, because they want him out of the way while they sort stuff out.
Yeah.
Whereas in Galaxy Quest, it's like the leader of the group is the one who comes down. So it's Mathazar, is he the commander? I don't know if he's commander then. He's definitely commander
Yeah, at
later
the
on.
end, yeah.
So I believe he's the commander, Mathazar, and he comes down with a few of his, like, whatever they're called. I was going to say cohorts, but
Crew?
that's crew, yes.
It's a shorter word.
So he comes down, he goes to Earth with a few of his crew to seek these heroes that they believe are actual heroes and warriors, because they have
Which
seen
is a fantastic sequence because they go to Tim Allen, Quincy.
Quincy Taggart.
Yeah, Quincy Taggart's Tim Allen's house, and he's hung over and in his underwear, and he's like, "Oh, cool, just wait around, I'll get my pants on." He's
Yeah.
thinking it's like someone's just built like a what do you call it, like a set in their garage.
Yeah, so it's so funny because they show up at the convention at the beginning of it,
Yeah.
and he has. So Justin Long and his friends have booked Peter Taggart by himself. No, Peter Taggart is the. I've confused myself.
Tim Allen.
No. Jason Nesmith.
Yeah.
Peter Taggart is the character within the within the movie.
It's like Inception.
Characters
within characters
I've
within
already
characters.
forgotten the name I just said. Something Nesmith. Whatever. He's the guy. I just think it's funny because Tim Allen.
Tim Allen,
Oh no,
cool.
I think it's funny because he's Nesmith, and in Toy Story he's Mrs. Nesbit, in the bit where Buzz is taken over by, or where he's like lost the arm and he's at the tea party.
This is the only scene I remember, other than Sid's like abominations.
Yeah.
Is that scene where Tom Hanks as Woody is like pretending to the rest of or is that in 2? No, it is in 1, eh?
In what? You haven't told me the scene.
Where he loses his mind and he's got one arm.
Where?
Buzz Lightyear loses.
Oh, Buzzy has.
Yeah.
Buzzy.
Old Buzzy.
That's mixing up Buzz and Woody into
Yeah.
one person. So.
Because there's that scene where he's like at the top of the stairs talking to somebody else, and he's like, "No, Buzz is right here," and he's like pretending
he's
with
in
his
the window,
arm.
and
Yeah,
Buzz is like totally depressed,
yeah.
totally out
he's
of
like,
it.
"Oh,
and
look, he's
like-
giving me a hug."
And then they think he's killed him and removed his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in that whole sequence in Sid's house, Sid's little sister has Buzz, and
That's right,
he
yeah.
doesn't have the arm, and she's put like a apron on and brought him to her tea party, and he's Mrs. Nesbit.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny because it's Jason Nesmith and he's a space ranger, and then he's this commander of a spaceship. Anyway, it's irrelevant because it's Toy Story, and that's not the movie we're talking about.
All Pixar movies are in one universe.
Yeah, oh, true. So Tim Allen does exist in A Bug's Life. No,
In
that's
all
not
universes.
how that works. Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, so Justin Long and his group of nerdy teenagers have got money together to book a viewing or like book a day with Jason Nesmith to like do like a fan
Reenactment.
yeah, to reenact something or do a fan script or something like that. So but he hasn't met them. He knows that he is going to be doing a fan thing with some fans.
Yeah.
And then the Thermians show up and they say they need his help, and they're all, they look like aliens, but so does everyone else at this convention. And
Bad
he's
70s aliens.
yeah, so he's like, oh yeah, just come to my house tomorrow, bring a limo.
Yeah.
So then it's the next morning and he's hungover and they're all just standing at his window, like
Yeah.
waiting for him, and they help him look for. Or he asks them to help him look for his pants, is it, or
Yeah,
his shoe?
and I love
they
how
three of them
look up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
three of them look up for it, and it's like, okay, sure. And they're like, we have your limo, and he's like, oh yeah, okay. And then what I love is the confusion comes from the same place, kind of in both movies, because in both movies everything could be explained easily by, or there would be no mistaken identity thing if the person who it was being described to was listening. So in Galaxy Quest, he's in the limo with them, and they're like trying to explain to him about Saris and about their people and what's going on and the war, and he's like, oh yeah, just tell me, and he puts sunglasses on and goes to sleep,
Yeah.
and then wakes up on their spaceship or on
Yeah.
their space station.
Because in that sort of sequence in A Bug's Life flickers on the back of Dim with the two Hungarian...
Tuck and roll.
yeah, I was going to say roly-polies, but I think that's a Kiwi thing as well.
Dung
Pillbugs?
beetles? Is that
No,
what they
I
are?
think they were pillbugs. Hang on,
Are
I'm
they
going to
not
double
all,
check.
I think these are all words for the same thing. We call them clocks in Ireland, which is not...
What?
Or my family called them clocks. I don't know. Or I
Tuck
think it's
and roll.
a similar...
Yeah, it says Pillbug Brothers. There
I
we
don't know
go.
what-
Say that 10
okay.
times fast.
Pillbug brothers.
Don't actually say it 10 times fast.
So Tuck and Roll, who do not speak English, are
Yeah.
the ones that Flick explains the whole thing to. So what this ends up with in both instances is performers in a place where they think that they're there to perform and they're actually there to fight, and they don't know that because they haven't got the message when the message was given.
So the only difference is that when Tim Allen arrives actually on the ship, and then sort of like goes, whatever, set it to screensaver 2, and
Yeah.
then it's like Saris appears and they're all terrified, and he's sort of still hungover and still drinking his can of, I think it was Diet Coke, or was it Dr. Pepper? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I didn't take notes on
It's
that.
irrelevant.
Some kind of product placement happens.
Yeah.
And it's
God.
such good product placement that we've forgotten what it is.
Yeah, but it probably showed lots of insert name of product, along with the movie. Like the Batman Oreos we got the other day.
Oh yeah, we got Batman. We got Oreos with Batman's face on
Yeah.
it because they were two for one.
No, it was
Or
because
two-
it was because it had Batman on it.
Yeah.
That's
But
what the marketing people might want us to think.
they were. It was like, I think it was two. It wasn't 2 for 1, but it was like the second. It worked out with the price that the second
One
packet
wasn't-
was only 4 cents.
Yeah,
So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy 2 packets of Batman Oreos, and he's got like kissy lips, like that comic about Batman being part of the male fantasy and not female fantasy, where she's like, okay, if he was drawn for women, this is what he'd look like, and the guy's like, that makes me uncomfortable. She's
Yeah.
like, exactly,
yeah.
but that's what he's like on the Oreos. So if anyone hasn't bought any Batman Oreos,
Or hasn't got, doesn't want to support the really interesting looking Batman movie. Where are we up to? Like, we've gone on a really random tangent
it's okay.
here.
We've got like an hour and a half. It's fine. I don't know what time it is.
Sets the screensaver 2. Saris appears. The Thermians recoil in horror. He's still hungover. Basically, just says to shoot at them, and then he's like, "I'll go home."
Yeah.
And then he gets sent to the teleporter, which was just
Yes.
like the most bizarre. Because I know, because the what comes up later is a digitizer.
Yes.
Which
but
was
this, yeah.
invented in Star Trek to save the production company money, because they were going to do like shuttle landings on each planet, and they're like, that's going to be expensive.
Yep.
Let's just invent a piece of technology where they just appear, and then you can just have a still frame of them just standing perfectly still, and they're like, "Oh yes, it's over there," which was borderline every single. It's like how Stargate SG-1 started with just them arriving in somewhere in British Columbia.
Cool.
Okay, I've lost you. It's that
but yes.
moment. It's that moment where Tim Allen realizes when he gets pushed, like punched through a black hole back to Earth.
Yeah, so he's like sent in like this slime. He's like covered in slime and then shot through space and lands back on Earth, and then the slime comes off him, and that is when he's like, "Oh no, that was real."
Yeah.
In A Bug's Life, the moment comes when they're having like their feast to like celebrate the fact that the Warriors have come, and they bring.
Because was that since after they, because Flick knows he's trying to organize with them.
No. This is before Flick knows that they're circus bugs. So Flick thinks that they're warriors. They think so. All the ants think that warriors have come here. The warriors, the circus bugs think they're there to perform.
Yeah.
And there's like whole loads of miscommunication where they play on the fact that like people say break a leg in theater instead of good luck and things like that. So they're like, whoa, they're brutal. They're like gonna break each other's legs and stuff, and knock them dead and things like that. So they still think at this point that they're here to perform, and the ants, including Flick, think that they're here to kill the grasshoppers or fight the grasshoppers and scare them off. And then they have like this feast to celebrate the fact that they're here.
Oh yeah, and, it's
and the Blueberry Scouts, which is all the little baby ants, including Princess Dot, played by Hayden Panettiere, come out and they have painted a mural for them, and it's like, it's full of like blood and guts, and they've cut Heimlich, the caterpillar, in half. And they're like, our art teacher told us that one of you had to die to make it more realistic, and suddenly the circus bugs are going, I don't think we're here to perform. It's like, I think there's been a miscommunication here. So then Flick is like giving a speech, and they're like tapping him on the shoulder and like whispering, and then he's like, what? So then he makes excuses to go off with them, and they're like, no, we're circus bugs. Like there's been some cross wires here. We can't do what you want us to do. And then rather than reveal it, there's a moment where someone says something about birds and then says even Hopper is afraid of birds.
Yeah, because that's why Hopper's got this scar on his face.
Yeah, so Flick suddenly gets this idea that they can still, make it work, and the ants won't know that he's an idiot who brought like circus bugs instead of warriors, and the circus bugs can keep up the act and things like that.
Because there is that scene in the beginning where they end up saving Dot from the bird, and that's where.
Yeah, so this happens around this part, I think, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Because it's when the circus bugs try to leave.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
So the circus bugs decide, they're like, no, this isn't going to work, and they try to leave, but then Dot gets almost attacked by the real bird, and they save her by doing like circusy stuff, and like using themselves as bait and things like that and distractions, and that's how they kind of prove themselves to the ants that they're legit, even though they're not legit. And then they come up with this plan. So I think that was it. I think they went to leave, and then that happened, and then it comes up that Hopper's afraid of birds, and Flick comes up with this plan. So their plan is to build a fake bird to scare off Hopper when he comes, and then he'll be gone and won't come back, and they'll be fine, and the ants will be able to eat the food, and everyone will be happy.
It's kind of circular for us as a podcast, because what was our first fun episode was The Great Escape, which is when birds built a plane.
Yeah,
so now it's bugs building
people
a bird.
building a bird
so
plane.
then the next one would have to be bacteria building an ant for this to work. Anyway.
I don't think that's what happens in our next phone one, because we've already recorded the episode.
Oh, yeah, we have. Spoilers.
And I don't think any bacteria build any ants in it. I don't think there's any ants involved.
I don't even remember what movie. We've recorded so many in advance.
I remember what movies they are.
Lucky one of us does. Lucky you're the producer and you remember.
We don't want to spoil for everyone.
Yeah, because otherwise the entire point of our Twitter and like Instagram stories
guess the movies.
Yeah, won't work.
So where were we? Yeah, so in both instances, there's a moment, like there's miscommunications that lead to them both thinking different things are happening, and then there's a moment of realization. So in Galaxy Quest, then it's only Nesmith who experiences this,
Yeah.
and then he goes to the rest of the crew and tries to
Who are
tell them.
opening a used car lot?
Oh, it's perfect. It's just great because it's the big thing with Alexander Dane is he doesn't want to say the line that he has to say all the time
Yeah.
on the show, which is by
Granthar's
by
hammer.
Grabthar's hammer you shall be avenged.
Yeah.
And they when they're opening this like used car lot or wherever it is, he's like he has to go up and go by Grabthar's hammer. What a savings! It's just like the greatest line, and it's just the delivery is perfect. But yeah, so they're all at this opening thing that Jason didn't show up to, and they assume he's hungover, and then he
Yeah.
comes down and he's like still drunk and ranting about aliens and this blah 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 blah, and then one
He
of
tries
the
to communicate with the ship and realizes he switched his communicator, the real one that the Thermians
yeah,
had built,
he
with
accidentally
Justin
banged
Long.
into Justin Long in the car
Yeah.
park, and they switched communicators. And he tries to tell the crew about it, and then Laliani, is that her name, Laliani, Missy Pyle, comes down and tells him that they need him back, and then he's like trying to get the crew to come with him, and they're like, no. And then he leaves, and then they... Tony Shalhoub's character, Fred Kwan, is like, oh, you know, when's the next time he's going to ask us along to a job? But they're like, was he actually talking about a job?
Yeah.
And then because they're all out of work actors whose only source of income at the moment is, you know,
Doing their
these conventions
appearances, yeah.
and things, they're like, okay, let's go. And Guy Fleegman, played by Sam Rockwell, joins them. He's not a member of the cast ordinarily. He was in 2 episodes, I think he said, as crewman number 6.
Which he plays the red shirt.
Yeah, he plays the red shirt. In one of the episodes, in episode 81, I think he says he dies. Why do I remember that? And
Just going to
like,
fact check you while you keep talking. It's okay.
what, that it's episode 81?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe it's episode 81 that he dies in.
It's not mentioned in here.
Okay.
Crewman number 6. Yeah.
Yeah, he's crewman number 6.
Yeah.
But it's funny because he insists on going with him. So he was the announcer at the convention they were at, and then he's like, I was actually on the show, you might not remember me. Let me sit down and
Sign my own headshots.
Sign my own headshots. So he asked to go with them then, and in doing so, becomes crewman number 6.
Yeah.
And then spends the entire rest of the movie
Terrified.
stressing about the fact that he's the no-name guy who's not a member of the crew and is going to die because he's the red shirt.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful moment at one point where they go down onto a planet and he starts panicking, and they're like, you didn't want us to leave you up there. And he's like, yeah, well, that was when I thought that I'd be the guy who's left on the ship and something would happen on the ship and I'd die on the ship. But now we're down here and I'm the guy who's going to die down here. It's like, he's just perfect character. I love him.
That whole sequence, the one that you kept referencing earlier today, with like, you know, don't open the door.
Yeah, because it's a whole sequence where they're coming down from the ship. So this is...
Because they get attacked by Saris again. The core, which is just like
the beryllium sphere.
The beryllium sphere, which was just, what was it? They said like plaster and tinfoil.
Right.
Is cracked.
Yeah, so they need a new beryllium sphere. So
Yeah.
they locate a planet where they can get a beryllium sphere, and they go down to the planet. And the whole way down, Guy is convinced he's going to die. He's like, I don't even have a last name. And
Yeah.
they're like, Guy, you have a last name. And he's like, do I? Do I? And no one knows what it is. And then when they get down to the bottom, they just open the door. And he's like, you know, you can't open that. Is there air? You don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just like the most realistic person in it, because like everyone else is just like accepting this is happening. They're like, yeah, cool, let's go down, let's get onto this planet, let's go get this thing, even though they're just a bunch of actors.
My favorite sequence when they first arrive at the starbase, where the what was the ship called?
Oh no, I'm not going to remember it.
Okay, it's not on your notes there.
No,
it doesn't
I don't
matter.
think it does.
The when they all get teleported.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, see, guys, I knew it. And then they're all like freaked out and like sort of frozen, but not kind of frozen.
Yeah.
And then Tony Shalhoub's character literally just turns around and is like, what's wrong with those guys?
Yeah. Tony Shalhoub's character is written as if he's high for the entire movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is why he's like totally calm and totally fine with everything and falls in love with one of the aliens and everything.
Guys, it says, they say, the crew says that we're going to explode. Is that...
And it's like they tell him to, he's like, the crew say we can do, or like my guys here say we can do this. And they're like, yeah, do that. And he's like, you guys got it right again. Good job, guys. And then it's just the only moment he freaks is when he has to operate the
digitizer.
digitizer, because he's never actually done it before, and they've said it's never been tested successfully.
Yeah, because
So
it's
they-
more art than science.
Yeah, so they test it on the on like the pig lizard, as they call it, and it turns inside out and explodes.
Yeah.
But then he successfully uses it on Jason Nesmith.
Yeah, and I love that sequence where it's like he gets back on the ship and he's all beaten up after fighting the rock monster,
Gorignac.
and he's got no shirt on.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver's character's instant response is, "Well, I see you got your shirt off."
No, I thought it was
Alan Rickman?
Alexander
Yeah,
Day.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Sorry, yeah.
Alan Rickman says it.
'Cause
he's
it's
just
such
like,
a-
"Oh, so you got your shirt off again."
Yeah, because it was such a Kirk-esque thing to he'd be stranded on the planet and have to fight some sort of creature that
Yeah,
they'd come up
yeah.
with, which was just a guy in
Yeah, and
plasticine.
it's hilarious because when they're on the planet, like, it's extra apparent that none of them have any idea what they're doing. So like,
The combat rolls
yeah, so
between two rocks.
Tim Allen is
Yeah.
like rolling around the place. He thinks that's what he's supposed to do, and they tell I've forgotten the guy's name. It's gone from my head. But they tell him to the guy who was a kid on the original show,
Oh, Tommy.
Tommy. Yeah. They tell him to
Practice.
but they tell him to give a signal if he sees
Oh,
anything.
yeah, that's
and he's
right.
like, okay, I'll go, caw, caw. And they were like, use the communicator. And he's like, oh, okay. But then when he actually sees him, he goes like, caw, caw, Jason. But like, you've got guy just freaking out about everything, and everyone just being like, oh yeah, I'll walk over there. And he's like, no, those things look cute. They're gonna get evil. They're gonna get nasty.
Yeah.
And then it happens. And then Sigourney Weaver's character turns around and is like, we gotta get off this planet before someone kills Guy. But it's like none of them have any idea what they're doing.
It reminds me more of the Star Trek episode of Futurama than it does of Star Trek.
Actual Star Trek.
Yeah,
Right.
because that
I've
like,
seen that.
the whole sequence where they pair off and they're going to fight each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, oh, there was that one time I took my shoe off and threw it.
Yeah.
Now my shoe's over there.
Yeah,
and my
'cause
foot's
it's-
cold.
Because that's the whole point, is that it's the actors.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that episode of Futurama is like a version of Galaxy Quest, because it's about a fan forcing the actors of Star
Yeah.
Trek to act out Star Trek.
It's so meta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just Galaxy Quest, but except that it's it's not an alien who really believes that that's who they are, that these are historical documents.
Because your entire race doesn't understand the concept of like deception and lies and like
Yeah.
inventing things that are fiction, which
I'm
is
gonna-
terrifying. And they're sort of like, therefore they wouldn't have any music. Their stories wouldn't have been told through like retelling, which was a big part of could have been a big part of human development, especially within Māoridom it was, because there's creation myths and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be an interesting look at that. But then they just saw a TV show and then we're just like, let's base our entire society on this TV show.
Yeah, they just don't realize it's a TV show. They see these people and they're like, these are the values that we want to have. We want to be
Yeah.
heroic. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to, but they're not realizing that it's fake.
Because it's that real, it's a razor's edge of like high level science fiction. It either goes utopia or dystopia.
Yep.
There's no like in between. It's no like, well, other than the stack technology, I think, you haven't watched Altered Carbon.
No.
No, okay. I'll discontinue that conversation with myself and have it later.
Okay.
Yeah, them building a utopia is interesting because it's just, how would you look at if we received TV from another system, would we base our entire society around that television? And for the love of God, I hope it's not reality TV.
I don't know, but I think it is genuine. I think it's because they don't have any kind of form of heroism. Really, they're all very, it's all very monotonous, all very whatever, and they aspire to something better, and so they see this and they're like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to be. I think Mathesar particularly is that, and then I think at the end of the movie, Mathesar gets to be that hero,
Yeah.
which is great.
Because it's not really sort of a mirror of the audience. Like their race, the Thermians aren't a mirror of the audience because it's like COVID's proved it. We're not like heading towards the utopia, unfortunately,
No.
with the current state of affairs.
No.
We're into the dystopia.
We've entered the twilight zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
William Shatner was in that. Yeah. Moving on.
yeah, I think Mathesar in particular, who is like their leader, very much aspires to be the hero that
Yeah.
he sees these characters are, and so that's him going like, I can do this, but he doesn't really believe he can do it, so he believes he needs them to do
Yeah.
it. So by the end of the movie, we realize Mathesar is much more heroic than they
Yeah.
actually are. But I was trying to look through my notes on what I had written on comparisons, and one of the things was the way that they find out, because that would be the median point then.
Sort of,
The
yeah.
two films will be
yeah.
how they find out that it's not real. So in A Bug's Life, it happens when P.T. Flea, who is the leader of the circus, who has fired these circus bugs,
It's looking for them.
he's looking for them, and he shows up, and he has a poster with all of the bugs drawn on it, and people are like, hey, isn't that person? And then he spots them, and he's like, oh my god, you guys, and he starts telling about how good the act was and how he needs them back, and it becomes this big reveal that they are circus bugs, and they're not, and at this point they've spent so much time
Building
following
up the hopes of the ant.
yeah,
kingdom.
building this bird that they believe is their plan, but is actually Flick's
Flick's
plan. That they haven't gathered the food for the grasshoppers.
Yeah.
So then they go into this panic where they're like, oh no, now we've got to do this. Whereas in Galaxy Quest, it's things have already gone wrong.
Yeah.
So it's they get back from getting the beryllium sphere, and things are slightly off on the ship, and they're not sure why. And then they find that Mathesar has been captured by Saris, and then they want to know about the Omega-13, which is this device that's on the ship. That on the show, it's never revealed what it is because the show was cancelled before the
Yeah.
episode aired. That would have told them what it was. So the actors have no idea what it is because no one does. And he wants to know what it is, and they're saying like, we don't know. And then eventually they tell Saris it's we're actors, it was fake, it's a show, and then he makes them explain it to Mathesar.
Yeah.
And it's a real explain like on 5 moment because he doesn't.
Understand.
He
at
genuinely
all.
doesn't understand, and they have to explain to him that it is a lie, and that the model or the ship that he sees on the screen is this size
Yeah.
and things like that. And it's very heartbreaking. It's actually really emotional. Poor Mathesar. I feel bad for him.
He sort of almost doesn't believe it at the end because when they
Yeah.
take back the ship, he's just like a tiny ship, like
He's
laughing
like,
about it.
he's like, you guys almost had me kind of
Yeah.
moment. But it's interesting because then they start to use their acting to their advantage. Actually, that happens in both movies as well. I don't think I even have that in my notes.
Yeah.
But in both movies, they start to use their acting to their advantage. So in A Bug's Life, it's they come back, the circus bugs come back while the grasshoppers are there, and they put on a circus show and distract them and get the queen away because they know that they're going to kill the queen.
Yeah. In the box thing that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, in the
Chinese
Metamorphosis
takeaway. Yeah.
Chinese takeaway box, and then they're distracting them and then giving a signal for the fake bird to come down. Whereas in Galaxy Quest, they have Alexander Dane and Jason Nesmith have this whole thing where they're put into the airlock and they act out a scene from
Yeah.
one of the show episodes where they fight each other and then they both punch the guy who was capturing them, and then they manage to get them in the airlock and eject them out. So in both movies, the performers end up using their performances to help win the overall battle.
Yeah.
Also in both, there is a group that like worships them that ends up becoming the savior of the day. Because in A Bug's Life, you've got the Blueberry Scouts.
Oh, yeah.
Who like absolutely love.
Francis.
Yeah, they love Francis, but they love all of them. Like
Yeah.
they all are, love different circus bugs, and I think they're great. And they're the ones who get the word out to Flick that the grasshoppers have arrived, that they're
Yeah.
going to kill the queen, and they're the ones that go up and man the bird then
Yeah.
when the bird comes down. And then in Galaxy Quest, you've got Justin Long and his friends, and they're the ones who are able to work out or they're the ones who have the theory about what the Omega-13 does,
And
which ends
also
up
the weird blueprints of the ship
Yeah,
where
they've got
going
all
through
the-
and like going through the chompers and just
to press to like or to stop it from destructing. It was going to self-destruct. Is that it?
yeah,
It's
it was
to
a
stop it from
self-destruct,
destructing.
and it was like again one of those old sci-fi things where the casts the actual background costs more than the actors do.
Yeah, it's so funny because there's like these chompers and things, and Sigourney Weaver's character is like, what is the
What purpose do
yeah,
these
like,
have?
What purpose do these have? What? And she's like, whoever wrote this episode should die.
Yeah.
And then when they get to the button, they press the button, and it keeps counting down, so they're panicking, and then it stops at 1, and they're like, oh yeah, it always stopped
stops at 1. Yeah.
Always stopped at 1 on their show. So which is hilarious because it's just another thing that like it never was going to explode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in both things, and then that group is also the ones that lead them down because their navigation isn't working properly when they're trying to land.
Yeah.
So in both things, there's this group that are kind of like seen as annoying at the beginning, and then end up being the real heroes of the day.
I do like that moment when Justin Long runs out of his house with like
The
fireworks. Yeah.
Oh no, the fireworks at the end.
Yeah, the garbage scene's fantastic because he's on the communicator with Taggart,
Yeah.
and he's talking to him, and then Mum keeps coming in and interrupting him, and he's like, I really remember what speaking software there was back then, because it'd
I
be like
don't remember.
TeamSpeak and
TeamSpeak is
then
what I
now
was thinking, but
Discord.
it's older than that.
Yeah,
It's 90s.
yeah, but they're in a video call as well. Random people can join.
Oh yeah, he's in
Yeah.
a video call with his friends. Yeah. I like the bit where they're about to go through the chompers, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's got the code for that," and he's like, 4424,
Yeah.
and they're just like, "What?" He's just listing numbers.
Yes, it's interesting because it is a huge parody of the old science fiction tropes of just having random stuff in there because it's just like I don't know, giant mechanical teeth. There we go, done.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
glowy thing and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
like for no reason. Lots of air vents that
Yeah.
they have to go through, and
Well, they serve a purpose in Aliens
yeah,
and Alien,
but it's funny
and then
because
become
it's,
like a huge part of the canon throughout the rest of the series. But
that's the whole joke.
yeah,
The whole joke is that it's Sigourney Weaver's character is like, oh, why is it always vents?
yeah.
Because it was her that
Yeah.
did that.
So we both drank drinks. At the
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
Took
This
took
is,
drinks at the same time. It was a bad time.
Some radio silence there while we're drinking some water.
Yeah, it's fine. We're on camera. It's okay.
Oh,
There's no
God.
dead air.
Don't look at,
Um,
I was going to say there will be when I edit it, but I can edit that out.
Yeah. Let's just move on.
I forgot how editing works.
Yeah. So you got that. I like that sequence where he runs out of the house with the fireworks because his parents are just like, well, at least he's outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then towards the end of the movies, in both cases, the person who originally scouted for the warriors saves the day kind of by standing up to the
Yeah.
oppressor. So in A Bug's Life, it's, after the bird, so they have the bird coming down, and then P.T. Flea, who's an idiot, sets it on fire,
Yeah.
thinking he's saving the day, but then the grasshoppers realize it's a bunch of ants in it, and they get annoyed. And Flick is like, he stands up to him and he's like, well, there's so many of us and whatever. And then he kind of looks at him and goes, and you know that.
Yeah.
And he realizes that that's what Hopper is really afraid of. So he stands up to him, and then all the ants come down, and the ants like start to take on the grasshoppers. But then it starts to rain, and so Hopper gets away with Flick, and then Ada, the other princess, manages to get him away from Hopper, and then he gets her to lead them to the bird, where Hopper shows up, and he gets eaten.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is I was looking at the IMDb trivia for A Bug's Life, and like 50% of the IMDb trivia for A Bug's Life is like, it's the first Pixar movie to do this. It's the second Pixar movie to do this. It's like, yeah, it's only the second one.
Yeah.
But my favorite was Hopper is the first Pixar villain to be killed on screen. And I was like, did they want the toys to kill Sid? Like, what were they thinking about? Like,
Well, they
it's like,
did
of course.
eventually.
What?
Well, because if every Pixar movie's like interconnected.
The toys didn't kill Sid.
No, but if every like thing that we've given life to has an appearance or has like gains sentience,
Oh God.
because that's why the cars get sentience, because so many people love cars. Look, just go with me on
Okay.
this.
Well, in Toy Story 4, it's once they put like a face on it because
Yeah,
she gets the fork and draws eyes on it.
Ka-chow.
and puts-
That's the whole thing.
Okay, but we don't see Sid die on screen.
No,
And he definitely wasn't the first one. Hopper was. Hopper's the first Pixar villain to die on screen.
yeah, but the toys killed everybody.
The toys didn't kill everybody.
Everyone
Stop
had
coming
to
up with your-
evacuate to space,
Stop
and
coming
that's
up
how
with
we
your
get
Toy- Your
Wall-E.
Toy Story conspiracy theories. That's not what happens.
It's not a conspiracy. If the car, the pizza delivery car, is in every single movie,
Yeah,
that they're all in the same universe.
Okay, I understand that, but the toys didn't kill Sid.
No, but they were the beginning of the uprising.
Okay, all right.
So
Sure.
don't argue
You
with
can
me.
write your fan fiction later.
I have read enough Reddit posts. Thank you. /fan fiction.
or slash
Fan
fan
theories.
fiction.
Fan theory.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so moving over to Galaxy Quest. In Galaxy Quest,
You have the sequence where you think it's,
you think they've defeated
Yeah.
Saris and everything's
and
good.
then Saris arrives on the bridge and he's wearing a cloaking device the same as the Thermians use to cloak themselves because they look like squid people.
Yeah.
As humans, and then he shoots everybody.
Yeah, so
and
he
then-
disguises himself as Fred,
Yeah.
and he comes in, and then he shoots everyone. He shoots and kills all of the crew members except Guy Fleegman,
Yeah.
which is hilarious because the whole joke, the whole way through, is Guy is convinced he's going to be the
gonna
one to die,
yeah.
and he's the only one who doesn't in that sequence. But at that point, Tim Allen he knows that
There's either two possibilities with the
Yeah.
Omega-13.
the Omega-13 will either destroy the universe.
It's like it's a matter rearranger. Yeah, that's a
Right.
mouthful.
Or else it will give you 13 seconds back in time.
Yeah, what use would that be? It would be fixing one
To
mistake.
fix one mistake,
Yeah.
that's what he says. Yeah, so he gets them to activate the
Omega-13.
Omega-13, and then it goes back to the moment that Fred walks in, and he tackles him, and then it's still Saris, and Saris, because everyone else is like, hey, get off, what are you doing to Fred? And then
Yeah.
Saris stands up with the gun, and Mathesar
Beats him with a
over the
cane.
head.
Yeah, because he's on a...
So
like,
Mathesar stands up to Saris in the end, like face-to-face, defeats him. Though then, like in A Bug's Life, we have a moment then where he comes back. It's when they land down in the convention. They land in the convention center, which is hilarious. And they come out, and then Cyrus comes out as well. And I was going to say Peter Taggart, Jason Nesmith, Tim
Yeah.
Allen shoots Cyrus.
Yeah,
Dead,
they
dead
just
for
think
real.
it's just part
Yeah,
of
the
the show.
people in the convention
Because
just think
such
it's
an
like
awesome... Because, like, obviously it would be over the top, and the
Yeah.
health and safety violations are insane. But that idea of, like, the ship crashing through the wall and everyone pouring out of it with actual smoke, and then just being like, is this real? Like, is this... Oh, well, they're here. That's production value. Like, let's just go with it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're all, like, disorientated
yeah.
and stumbling out. But, yeah, it is that sequence. But what I wanted to get to in the beginning, so I'm going to jump back now.
Right.
Jump back to the future.
Okay.
Is what I said at the end of the movie, when we finished watching the movie, is the amount of government departments and the fact that they'd be in very small boxes for a short amount of time. Sorry, there's a bugger on my face.
Oh no, a tiny fruit fly.
Yeah, I've said too many bad things about Bug's Life. The amount of government people, like the amount of suits that would surround them, like they'd never get out of it.
I've just hit myself in the throat with the microphone.
No, it's getting
Sorry.
late. There is no way they would have ever got out of. They would have been a CIA black site by the end of that
100%.
night. Like there is no way an alien spaceship, because we have systems in place to see things come into the atmosphere as an early warning system for I think they're called stellar objects.
Right.
To give people a little bit of warning if Armageddon deep impact.
Maybe we didn't in 1999.
No,
we
still,
did. I know.
yeah,
I'm joking. Yeah,
and
no,
an
they
actual
would have been
alien space.
swarmed.
Yeah, and the amount of information they would have had,
Yeah.
because they've just been like, oh, cool, you don't need us anymore. We're going back to Earth, and you're arriving back on Earth with a literal, like the insane amount of technology that would be in there, like. What I want to get to at the end of it, because we have to wrap up
Shortly.
shortly, is talking of sequels,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously there was like not a real sequel for Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, they were supposed to be. They were in talks to do a real
Yeah,
sequel, and then
for
Alan Rickman
years.
died,
Yeah,
so they can't do it anymore.
because I remember hearing about it, like, I think when it's like maybe would have been mid 2000s.
Right.
It wasn't like, I think it was long pre-production hell.
Mm.
But yeah, out of all the early franchises for Pixar,
Pixar.
Bugs Life didn't get a sequel.
Yep. Didn't need one.
Yeah, true.
The
But in saying that, Galaxy Quest really didn't need a sequel either.
no,
That was nicely.
we just like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the end of both films, the performers go off and some other people join them. So in A Bug's Life, the circus bugs go back on the road, and some of the ants join them as a circus, as a group, and also Molt, played by Richard Kind, who is
Yeah.
Hopper's brother,
Yeah.
joins the circus because he's too nice to be an evil grasshopper anyway.
Mm.
And in Galaxy Quest, they bring the show back for a reunion,
Yeah.
and Guy gets an actual role, and Laliana, who's played by
I think it
Misty
was
Pyle.
it was a reboot, right?
Is it a reboot?
Oh, it was
no,
like
because
a-
it's the same actors, or
What it-
it's the same characters.
Gets,
It's like a.
It sort of like gets de-cancelled. Or they
Right.
get another sequel.
I think they just
season.
get like a reunion season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the aliens who has fallen in love with Fred joins that as well.
How could you not?
How could you not? Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you not fall in love with Fred? Very briefly, I'll go through some of my IMDb notes. I know that Molt in A Bug's Life was created because they wanted to have like a comic relief to some of Hopper's stuff.
Yeah,
but
because
they-
without him, he would have just been like horrible. They would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
scared
it wouldn't
kids.
really
Yeah,
terrifying.
Yeah.
But they also had originally just had him be just like a random grasshopper, and then they realized that Hopper would not put up with that unless he
Yeah.
was family, so that's why they made him his brother. They did weird things with bugs, so like they created a new bug for
For
Dim. The gypsy moths, females can't fly, only the males can fly. And the ants only have 4 legs when they should have 6. Because they thought it made them look too sinister if they had 6, whereas they gave the grasshoppers the extra legs because they
Yeah.
wanted them to look creepy. It's also the first Pixar film to have outtakes, and it was the only computer animated film produced in a widescreen aspect ratio in the 20th century.
Oh wow.
So that's fun. What were my... Oh yeah, because that was the one I wanted to get to, was Guy Fleegman is... They say in the movie that he was like an adult on the show, whereas the other guy, Tommy, was a child on the show, but
Yeah.
he's actually older than Sam Rockwell. So it didn't make any sense that he would
I'd
be
never thought about that until now.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense.
Because it's clearly set in the 90s. So if it was a 70s show and he was a random cast member.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that because he's younger than the guy who played a child on the show. So it was bizarre.
Maybe just like Will Wheaton and just never aged.
Yeah.
Like, so he just looks the same way he did 10 years ago.
So briefly, which of these films do you think cost more to make?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. See if you can ballpark it. How much do you think they each cost to make?
I'd say A Bug's Life, it'd be in the 90 million-esque era. And I think we'll go 105 for Galaxy Quest.
Wrong.
Way off?
A Bug's Life was 120 million to make.
Okay.
Galaxy Quest was 45 million.
Wow.
Way less, way less. So Galaxy Quest made 90 million in box office, so it made double.
Yeah.
A Bug's Life made 363 million, so it
Of
made
course
triple
it
what
did.
it did.
It's printing money.
Yeah. They've got almost exact the same rating on IMDb. It's a 7.2 for A Bug's Life, 7.3 for Galaxy Quest.
It was the thing that's how things age, though.
Mm.
Like, you would...
I love Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, as you can tell from
As you
your
can tell from
T-shirt.
my
Yeah,
t-shirt.
which you bought especially for this
Shh,
occasion.
don't tell them that.
Okay, I won't.
Pretend that I was born wearing this Galaxy
Yeah,
Quest
this brand
t-shirt.
new T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised I didn't have one before, to be perfectly honest. Like, why didn't I? I love Galaxy Quest. I quote it to you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier. It's like especially when I'm anxious about something and you're trying to calm me down, I'm like, you don't know. So I quote it all the time. Anyway, we should probably wrap up because I thought that we would be like struggling to fill the time, but we have talked for an hour and a half, so we should stop talking. That's what we should do.
But then they'll stop listening to us.
Yes. But they can listen to us on Spotify or literally actually anywhere. Or our website is ittakes2.co.nz. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ittakes2_pod or Facebook at ittakes2pod. Thank you very much to Dennis and to
Thank you, Dennis.
to listen to this for inviting us to be here as part of the 6 Degrees Festival. We're in Bats Theatre, as people who were here for the pre-show would have heard. Yeah, it's been a cool experience.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
And thank you very much to our live audience,
Yeah.
which is rare. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I think this has been a very interesting experience, and I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, it's our first ever live show, and
Yeah.
I didn't projectile vomit on
All
all the
over the
equipment.
equipment,
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause that's
yeah.
that was our worst case scenario before we started. Was I managed to projectile vomit right onto the computer and the soundboard and stuff over there.
It would have been impressive.
It would have been very impressive, and
There
it would have
would've-
been caught on 2 cameras.
And there would have been a fourth. No, what's the movie called? Where they take the. Damn it! I was gonna. The movie
no.
where the little girl vomits on everything. Exorcist.
Exorcist.
Thank you. There's been a fourth Exorcist movie.
Yes, okay. It could have been.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you to everyone for being here and to everyone who joined the live stream. And for whenever we release this as an actual episode, thank you to everyone who listened to that too.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Sweet.
Thank you.